How is everybody? Try not to trip over this. Nice little crowd here tonight. No Pastor Ware, so he'll be here next week. But, so last week we spent a long time looking at, well, I'm not going to tell you guys, that's doing your work. What did we look at last semester? What were some of the topics that we covered here? You guys remember it all? Oh, Scarlett's getting her notebook.
Other religions?
Okay, other religions. I think that was the one before. Yeah, that was the last spring. They all run together. We did do a little bit of talk on same-sex stuff, yeah. Let me inform the student president and student vice president here. What we did last semester, Steve? We did do a debate. Yeah, I did a debate. We spent the semester looking at the Bible. Basically, how do we get the Bible? How do we do biblical interpretation? How do we know the New Testament's reliable? Several different talks. Pastor Ware did a talk, I think basically like all 66 books in an hour, kind of the gospel from 90,000 feet in the air. This semester, we wanted to kind of continue the theme with the Bible, but we wanted to look more so at theology. So get into a lot of the core essential doctrines of the faith. Now, one of the beautiful things about Ratio Christi, and for those who are new, Ratio Christi is Latin for the reason for Christ. One of the beautiful things I love about it is it's non-denominational, right? I'm sure in this room we have Anglicans, Methodists, Presbyterians, Baptists, right? But one of the things that kind of draw us all together, some of the things that we can all be in agreement with, are a lot of the core doctrines. And so with Ratio Christi, we're not going to take particular stands on issues of, for example, the age of the earth, right? That's an important topic to have, but we don't come down hard one way or another. There's some people in Ratio Christi that hold to a young earth, some hold to an old earth. Some people hold to more of Reformed theology, some may hold to more of an Arminian theology. Different views on what we would call non-essential issues. So what we're going to be looking at this particular semester is the essentials. Now, last semester, if you guys recall, I did a debate with my friend who is I forget his name. He's still my friend, but I can't remember the name off the top of my head. But the Young Advocates for Christ, Michael something. Nice guy, but big disagreements, right? Consider the guy a friend, but big disagreements as far as theology, right? We would not be able to come, and he would agree, we would not be able to come together and have communion and fellowship as brothers because different view of God, different view of salvation, just different fundamental core doctrines, right? But again, as we talk about some of the Presbyterians and Pentecostals, we all share kind of the same doctrines, right? The doctrine of the Trinity and the physical resurrection of Christ and, the authority and inspiration of the Scriptures, some of these things. And so what we're going to be looking at this semester is what are some of the core essential doctrines of the Christian faith? How did we get them? How did they derive kind of a historical theology? And what are some of the objections that come against them, right? So you saw some last semester when I did that debate on whether or not Jesus was God or a created being. You see some of those objections there. So we've got Mike doing a few talks, Pastor Ware doing a few talks. We've even roped Christian into doing a talk, and so it's going to be a great semester. Real quick before I jump into it here. Is it this? It is this coming Monday, right?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. You want to?
Give me a stand up.
Sure, go ahead.
All right.
Scarlett's going to give us a little detail on the culture event coming up.
So we have a cultural event that's free. That is a movie. It's going to happen next Monday, Dina's Place. We're partnering with the Newman Catholic group, Women's
Palmetto Women's.
Palmetto Women's Center. Wow. And Students for Life, which is an international
Pro-life, yeah,
it's a
national.
pro-life national organization that has the rights to the movie that we showed. So we're also partnering with them to show Unplanned. It's going to be from 6:50 to 9 p.m. Just show up on time, you'll get your cultural event credits, and don't like leave early.
Well, what day is on it?
Hey, Christian.
Next Monday, the
Christian.
27th. What time? 6:50.
Oh,
Any other questions? Dina's Place.
There's a clip that I need to show
Alright,
in just a
thanks.
minute. It's Bill Maher.
There's also like a.
Let's
like
just
a
type in, it's on
Instagram
YouTube,
about it.
Bill Maher, who is Jesus?
Struggled around.
I can close that.
Yeah.
Scattered around.
Well, do you want to just wait till I get there and then you can type it in?
I'll
It'll
be
t-
distracting if I'm doing that while you're talking.
Okay, that's fine. All right. That, and then we got my good friend Clinton Wilcox coming in. How do you do this thing? There we go. Doing the old Holy Cross here on it. Clinton Wilcox, he's been here several times. You guys probably remember him. He's a pro-life apologist out of Fresno, California. He's with the Life Training Institute. He'll be here Monday. Got a full week of good stuff planned, so we'll get the information out with that. Of course, January, you got Sanctity of Life Sunday, which was this past Sunday. You got the March for Life going on down in Washington, D.C., and so, some groups aren't going to really talk about it, but Ratio Christi, we are unapologetically pro-life, but we want to give you guys good reasons, arguments, and, evidence to why we think that position is correct. So come next Monday, Clinton will be doing a secular defense of the pro-life position. So he's not necessarily going to get into the Bible and theology, but more of like philosophy and biology. And then lastly, if you go to Ratio Christi at Winthrop University on YouTube, you'll find all the talks that we've done over the past semesters and then the ones that we're going to be doing this semester. So without any further ado, I was asked, kind of as we're starting to do these talks, we want to get you guys engaged a little more. So it's not just, you guys don't want to probably feel like I'm up here talking at you and lecturing you. So it's going to be very interactive tonight. You guys get to do the work. So the first question we might ask is, what is theology? What is theology? What do you think, Haley? I saw you take a bite of pizza, so I had to ask.
I have a definition in here.
Wow. She was ready for me. Kind of an important question, people ask this all the time. What is theology? Why is it important to study it? What do you think? What is theology? Nice and loud.
I have a religion definition.
Let's hear it.
Okay. A form of life that seems to those who belong to it to be comprehensive and capable of abandonment and of central importance.
Okay, yeah. That's a decent definition. What else?
It's like what you think about God.
Yeah, what do you think about God?
So it's like Theo, and that's like about God.
Mm-hmm. Study of God. Jacob, look at you. You've been paying attention. That's really a very good definition of it. Theology is the study of God. So sometimes when you ask this, these are some little objections I've got once in a while. They'll come through and they'll say, well, why not just study the Bible? Why do we need man-made theology? Why not just study the Bible? Cody's ready for that one.
Well, with the Bible, that's one story about God. But there's a billion stories about God, so I like that one as the real one. And if I study theology, maybe that'll help me to look at these and say, well, based on what I see in the world, this one is telling me the truth.
Okay, yeah, so you're using it to kind of look at other religions and kind of come to a conclusion of what religion you think is true. Go ahead, Amelia.
I look at the Bible as an account of people
Yeah.
throughout history, and why not study the Bible? We're actually learning about history where I'm teaching with fourth graders, and you need to make connections to other valid pieces of evidence throughout history.
Right.
To make it real, to make it perceivable to the public, especially if you're trying to make a argument for God.
Very good. Yeah, so theology helps us kind of tie together some of these threads, right? For example, I've done a lot of, engaging with Jehovah's Witnesses. And one of the things that the Jehovah's Witnesses will always point out, and our friend last semester would point out as well, the word Trinity is nowhere in the Bible. You don't find the word Trinity in the Bible, so why would you believe the Trinity? Right? And so theology helps us to kind of be able to take some of these ideas or some of these things that the Scriptures teach and formulate them into particular doctrines. Right? So what else? Why else would we maybe study theology and not just the Bible?
This kind of a question, isn't it?
Yeah.
What else do you like Christian theology? I guess that's the word, like.
Sure.
Christian theology, what else do they look at besides the Bible?
That's great. That's a good question. So the question is, as a Christian, for example, a theologian, what would they look at besides the Bible? Great question. So say we have people who live in, remote parts of the world. They don't have a Bible. Can they know about God? What could they do to know about God? Is it just prayer, or what do you think, my friend? You've been in here a few semesters. You should know this.
Well, if they live in the remote part of the world, they probably wouldn't know about Western religion.
Right.
They would believe in a rock or a stick or.
Yeah, so they may not even not know about Christianity, right? Is there a way, though, that they can know that God exists?
I'm not sure where it's at, but isn't there a verse that talks about how God makes himself evident in the natural world?
Yeah, he does. He does. So Romans 1 talks about that. So that gets into some of the theology proper. And so for the theologian, what they can look at is what they call, special revelation, which is the Bible, where God speaks, gives us the prophets, apostles, etc. But then you also have general revelation. And this is where you also have Christian philosophers who will come in, and they can make good philosophical arguments for theism, broadly. And then you've probably heard of like intelligent design, right? So you'll get even some scientists who can come in and look at things like biochemistry or DNA and design and certain biological features and make like teleological arguments. So I think what the Christian would say is that, all truth is God's truth, right? And so there shouldn't be anywhere in the world, nature, the universe, etc., that really would contradict or go against what we're told in the Scriptures, right? All truth is God's truth. One of the questions that might come up is, isn't theology just for religious people? That is it only people who are doing religion or that are religious that are doing theology? We'll get into that, and then we'll look at what are the branches of theology as well as what are the difference between first and second order doctrines. Yeah, I might have went the wrong way there. There we go. So theology, this comes from Bible.org. Theology, most simply put, is the study of God. It comes from the word theos, which is Greek for God, and ology, which is Greek for the Greek word logos, meaning word. Most literally, then, the word theology means words about God or the study of God. If we were to use them generically, it functions much like philosophy or worldview. People often use the word as a way in secular venues. Many times it is used very specifically, speaking only about God. This is called theology proper. But generally speaking, theology is a belief system that is built upon intellectually and emotionally held commitments concerning God and man. So it's similar to religion, right? And this may offend some people, but sometimes you will hear Christians say, well, Christianity is not a religion, it's a relationship. And I want to pull my hair out when I hear that, because it is a religion, right? But it's not only a religion. There is a relational aspect to it as well. The problem, I think, when we start saying things like, well, it's not a religion, it's just, me and Jesus or me and the Bible, is to be a Christian, there are doctrines that have to be believed. There are doctrines that need to be held. there is, doctrines that separate the kingdom of Christ from the kingdom of the cult. It's not just me and my own little personal Jesus, right? There are certain doctrines. Michael Horton, a well-known theologian, says Christianity. I'm trying to remember exactly how he says it. It's it's a personal relationships, but it's not private, right? There are certain doctrines or certain beliefs. If someone says, I'm a Christian, well, then it's just assumed, okay, then you believe the physical resurrection of Jesus. You believe the doctrine of the Trinity. You believe the Virgin Mary. And you can just kind of look at the Apostles' Creed, the Nicene Creed, etc. As Protestants, we don't say that the church is infallible or that the creeds are infallible, but they are authoritative. And I think God has given us, church history and people in our past and in the church, and the creeds and the confessions, they're for our benefit, right? There's much we can learn from them. They're not infallible. They're not on the same level as the Word of God. But just as, my father is not infallible, they're still an authority, right? If you belong to a church, and I hope you guys do, your pastor has an authority over you. The scriptures talk about how God has placed shepherds over us. They're not an infallible authority, but they are to a lesser degree an authority. So I'll keep going the wrong way here. So some might say, well, it's theology. It's a dirty word. They don't like theology. Again, this idea of me and my Bible or me and Jesus. What do we say to that? Have you guys heard of this kind of objection before, or maybe you even have some of these thoughts? We don't need theology. We just need Jesus.
I was about to say that very thing came from some people at the church. The pastor that used to be there was really into putting a lot of theology into his sermons, and some people were like, "This is great, but like, what does that mean for my life?" Like, all this theology is like over my head, and I just need to know how to trust Jesus, right?
Yeah, that's a common one, right? It comes up. Why theology? Why do we need to know all this stuff? Why not just Jesus? Oh, sorry. Mike's head was in the way there.
Because I think a lot of people that usually who find theology as a dirty word also they define faith differently than what we would define
right.
faith. Because sometimes they think faith is it's an irrational belief that you're just trusting something without knowing anything.
Right.
And I think that's we need to address what.
Right. So it kind of ties together, right? It's because they really don't understand theology, then it leads into these misconceptions of, well, what do we mean by faith, and some of those things. Well, what do you guys say if you were to hear an objection like this? What would you say? I don't need Jesus. I just need the Bible. Go to Cody and then Miss Amelia.
With this, I understand having faith. Once you become a Christian, you're like, yeah, I've got Jesus, I have the Bible, I'm good. But if you don't know the doctrines, you don't know theology, and you don't have the evidence, how do you know for a fact it's true, or that you actually have Jesus? How do you know, like it says in the Bible, be prepared to give an answer. So if somebody comes to me and starts spitting questions by faith, how can you believe the Trinity? What is the Trinity? How can you believe somebody rose from the dead? That doesn't happen today. No one's ever done that.
Right.
If I don't have answers to that, they can just shout questions at me until they are blue in the face, and I would just run away. Please get away from me. Leave me alone.
Yeah, I've had probably a few of those encounters. What do you think, Amelia?
I agree wholeheartedly with what he said, and it's making an argument for God. And you wouldn't study if you think about other things in your life, like math. There is an argument for math, and everything that you do, there's a reason for it.
Right.
And there's a reason.
That's a great point.
For believing in God and making an argument for God. And I think to be a strong and true Christian, you need to not only study the Bible, but study what it's about, ask questions.
I love
so you
that.
can give
Yeah.
those great answers.
That's such a great point. Yeah. And see, sometimes what I see is there will be this distinction, almost like the hard sciences or something like that is over here, but religion, it's kind of subjective and it's relative and it's really, it's kind of up to the individual. But again, all truth is God's truth, right? And so when someone says to me this kind of a thing as far as, well, I don't need theology, I just need Jesus, just give me Jesus. Well, the question in my mind immediately is going to come, what Jesus, right? The Jesus of the Watchtower, right? The Jehovah's Witnesses, the Mormon Jesus, the Muslim Jesus who's just a prophet. There's a lot of different views of who Jesus is. So when talking about, well, I just love Jesus, just give me Jesus. Well, who is Jesus, right? What Jesus? No creed but Christ, right? You've heard that. That's a creed. That is a doctrine itself, right? And so that's kind of self-defeating. Sometimes you hear this from other groups. They'll say, well, Christianity has 30,000 denominations, is all these different, theology, etc. But again, studying theology, it's going to lead us to truth about who God is. And of course, that number's not accurate, it's inflated. But it's going to lead us to who God is and the truth about God, not only in the scriptures, but also in the natural world, right? Jesus says in John 3:12, if I tell you heavenly things and you don't believe, or if I tell you earthly things and you don't believe, how will you believe when I tell you heavenly things, right? So we can trust the scriptures and we can look at theology. I would say science is a gift God has given us to where we can know the natural world, we can get medicine, right? I think sometimes atheists take it too far and that they view it as it's the only discipline. It's the only way to get knowledge. And I think that's false. There's other ways we can get knowledge. Science, it's a great tool that God has given us, but it's not the only tool. And so as we do theology, we engage also in philosophy and some of the others. So who engages in theology? Isn't it just for religious people? Well, you want to type that in now? It's on YouTube. It's a Bill Maher, Who is Jesus?
What are we doing?
Oh man.
I'm sorry. You shouldn't trust me with the keyboard, Devin. I'll ruin everything. Escape?
Hit escape. There you go.
Thanks, Mike. Bill Maher, what was the question?
Who is Jesus? Go to YouTube. It's on YouTube. Go to that one right there. Yep, that one right there. Turn it up.
Can you get captions on this?
I'm not sure. Is it turned up all the way?
English. Right underneath.
Oh, thank you. I can't see from here.
The volume is also down there.
Is this it? Is that volume?
No.
You got it.
Okay, it's up.
Try the volume
It's
on the
yeah. They're both. It looks like they're both up. Yeah. Someone hit the light back there. Maybe Kirk or someone. There you go. So Bill Maher is a well-known kind of atheist commentary guy. All right.
People come to me all the time and they say, Bill, I'm with you. I saw your movie. We're right here. I don't believe in that crazy biblical nonsense.
There you
Just
go.
a centric story.
Is that as far as it goes?
Oh, you mean the stupidest part?
Hit the volume. Hit the
Come
volume.
on. God had a son. Time out right there. God had a son?
Start
People come to me all the time and they say, Bill, I'm with you. I saw your movie. We're right here. I don't believe in that crazy biblical nonsense. Just a central story. Oh, you mean the stupidest part? Come on. God had a son. Time out right there. God had a son? He's powerful beyond all imagination. He exists in a realm above time and space, but he has kids? What is this, Bonanza? He has a son. God had a son, and he said to him, Jesus, I'm sending you down to earth on a suicide mission. But don't worry, they can't kill you because you're really me. But it is going to hurt for a few days. I'm not going to lie about that, son. There's about 3 days you're going to hate me. But I'm doing this for you. I mean me. What am I saying? I'm me, you're you. I know myself, but I have you. Me. What am I saying? Anyway. All right. Now... Now, Jesus, here's the plan. I, God the Father, wink, wink, I'll go down to earth first. You see, we'll split up the work, because there's 2 of us. Not really. I'll go down to earth, and I'll see if I can find a virgin Palestinian woman to impregnate so that she can give birth to you. I mean me! What am I saying? It's like Faye Dunaway in Chinatown. My sister, my daughter, my sister, my daughter. I mean, it is one of the silliest stories I've ever heard, but I don't mean to offend.
Let's see here. Thank you. So, I mean, the question might be, well, who engages in theology? Well, Bill Maher does. And it's something, you know, he uses that. It's not just a little comedy show. He does that kind of a shtick a lot. I've seen him do it a lot against Christians. And I mean, the first thing I guess it should be noted is mockery is not an argument, right? Saying something is stupid doesn't disprove something. But second of all, totally misrepresents what the doctrine of the Trinity is, doesn't he? And he thinks he's getting this really good laugh at the Christian's expense. And all he's showing is he's completely ignorant of basic Christian theology that the Sunday school child would know going to Sunday school. So who engages in theology? Everybody, right? Everybody's a theologian. Everybody is a philosopher because everybody thinks about these kind of questions. Does God exist? Is there a God? Is there an afterlife? Is all that exists the material world? Right? So these are some of the atheists. I just want to look at some of their quotes regarding religion and theology. So Richard Dawkins, of course, well-known biologist and outspoken atheist, in his book The God Delusion says, "I'm against religion because it teaches us to be satisfied with not understanding the world." What do you guys think about that? So for the Christians in the room, your skeptic friend says this to you. That, well, the Bible is saying, you're just not to, you're to be satisfied with not understanding the world.
I mean, it kind of just seems like he's just unsatisfied with not understanding based on that quote. So, like,
yeah,
it's not like he saw the answer to the question.
Yeah, yep.
I don't agree because it answers questions for us. Theology and religion answer questions. The study of Christ answers questions for us so we understand what he wants in our path in life and the world until he gives us answers in different ways.
Yeah, so for one, you're saying it's a straw man. It's not true. We do have certain understanding of the world. You're saying, well, you're kind of criticizing Christians for not understanding the world, but you don't have those answers either, right? Is that kind of what you're getting at?
And I was just going to say that, to go off what she says, sort of like Christians, like with the knowledge they have of God and everything, they can be satisfied with understanding.
Right.
It's like it is an understanding of the world.
Mm-hmm.
So, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead, Frank.
Actually, I'd say, first off, that Christianity, at least biblical Christianity, teaches us to understand the world as best we can, so it's better to understand the Bible. Like, that's God's creation, that's what God gave us, that's the world where we live in, and the resources we have.
Yeah.
But most religions, not excluding Christianity, but most religions actually do teach to just kind of not understand the world necessarily, but just kind of follow their little, doctrines.
Yeah.
So in most, I mean, he's wrong, but in a weird way, he's kind of right, because a lot of religions
some religions do, right? Yeah. But that's why there's important with the distinctions, right? Because it's like,
There's religion and then there's Christianity.
yeah, because you say, well, religion's anti-science. Well, some of them are anti-science. Let me go to Haley and then I'll go to you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just going to say that it's just kind of silly to say that. I mean, obviously, because religion is just like an umbrella term for all of these different religions, and they are different. Some of them are anti-science, some of them are, just blind faith. But I think it's silly, this quote, because specifically, if you take religion and theology and you take science, and then you put them together, it answers all the questions. So
Yeah.
this is what the other can't, and it just sort of picks up and fills in the blanks, and it supports the other. So
I agree. Yep. Very good.
I was
Good.
gonna play a little devil's advocate and say that I think what he's saying is a common, like a lot of Christians will say. I mean, he's probably speaking kind of towards Christianity more because he's, raised in the West. So
Well, and that book is it's a tirade on Christianity, but
so a lot of people, especially growing up in the church, will tell you just take it on faith. Like, we don't have to understand it.
Right.
We'll just ask God when we get to heaven.
yeah.
And I think there is some stuff where you kind of, there's a limit to what we can know. Because,
Yeah.
there's time limits and things like that. But
And in all worldviews, right? I mean,
Right, and in science.
naturalism certainly can't answer all the questions either.
Right. And
But,
I
yeah.
I'm just not thinking about it deeply enough.
But I like the point because it's so for those watching at home who may not be able to hear all the responses. A friend here was saying that there's some Christians who are brought up in this worldview where basically it is a blind faith and it is kind of just believe. And so in some senses people like Dawkins, they meet Christians who talk like this and they get that answer, and so it seems like that. But I think you guys all give really good answers. If you put theology, philosophy, science, put these things together, it does answer these questions. I think another bigger important thing is kind of the whole worldview, right? What is a worldview? Do you guys know what a worldview is? What's a worldview? A lot of sides shake your head, yes. What is a worldview? Yeah, that's right, yeah. So as a Christian, we would look at it through the lens, like glasses of the Bible, right? And theology and that. And so I would say that when he's asking this question, he's basically saying, well, science is wonderful and it's done so many wonderful things. I would say, well, naturalism doesn't provide a framework for that, though, right? Only theism really gives you the ability to have uniformitarianism as far as the laws of nature being uniform, being able to run the same scientific experiments, being able to use the laws of logic, which are not material, they're immaterial, they're universal, right? That we have these minds that are separate from our brains where we can actually think and come to conclusions. And so having things like causality, really good book on that topic, Frank Turek's book, Stealing from God. He always says, it's not about tithing. Stealing from God, why atheists need God to make their case. And what he shows is all these particular things are basically the furniture in only a theistic world. And so when the skeptic is complaining about evil or, lauding on science, how wonderful it is, you don't get that in naturalism. That only comes from a theistic worldview. And so that was free. What did I do here?
There you go. And that's fine. You're almost there. There you go.
There we go. All right, so this is Christopher Hitchens, his book, God is Not Great. Hitchens, he was one of my favorite of the atheists. He passed away a while back, but feisty little character. Faith is the surrender of the mind. It's the surrender of reason. It's the surrender of the only thing that makes us different from other mammals. It's our need to believe and to surrender our skepticism and our reason and our yearning to discard that and put all our trust or faith in someone or something that is the sinister thing to me. Of all virtues, faith must be the overrated. So he's engaging in theology here, and he has a particular view of faith that he thinks that Christians hold to. What do we say to this? What would you guys say to this kind of objections, that faith is overrated and it's supposed to be a virtue? that to put our faith or trust in something is a sinister thing. What do you guys think? Go ahead, Cody.
Well, I would come back at him and say, well, with you, we're like your faith in evolution because you weren't there. You don't know for a fact whether it happened or not. You just believe it because you don't want to believe in God, and so you try to find or come up with a substitutionary answer. And again, you weren't there, I wasn't there, neither of us know for a fact. We didn't see what happened or who or what caused all of this.
Right.
So we have to have some faith, no matter what side we're on, whether it be evolution or creation.
Right. Yep. What time I got, Mike? What time is it?
It's 8:45.
Perfect.
I understand actually why he's saying that, but if the only thing you have is faith, you're going to be let down a lot.
Yeah.
There, especially if you have faith in other people, because
Right.
we're all sinners and we're going to let each other down.
Yeah.
And if the only thing you have is faith,
Yeah. It's kind of like faith is only as good as what you put it in, right? So faith itself isn't a way of knowing something, right? I'll even hear Christians say this. You know, how do you know that the Bible's true? Well, because I have faith. Well, that doesn't make the Bible true because you have faith. Or I believe, you know, I think God exists because I have faith. Well, that doesn't mean God exists because you have faith, right? Faith is the Greek word is pistis. It's to have a trust or a confidence in, but it's not like an epistemology, right? It's not a way of knowing something. It's, you know, we are placing our faith or our trust, but it's only as good as what you put it in, right? So the question would be, is there good reasons for the Christian to put his faith in Christ? And, you know, as we've shown in a lot of different talks, we think that there's very good reasons for that. So I'm just trying to kind of show you guys a framework here that it's not just Christians who engage in theology. A lot of people engage in theology. Oh, is that you doing that? Oh, you. I'll just raise my hand when I need it. Okay, so this is Lawrence Krauss. He says, religion is a negative force for humanity because it implies things about the real world that are just not true. So what is he saying in this quote? How is he engaging in theology? Let's get to my friend back here.
I'm just wondering what things he's thinking are not true. So religion speaks to where do we come from, and
Yeah.
it's a fact-based argument that goes back to archaeology, finding that where archaeology says humanity came from is the same place the Bible says humanity started.
Sure.
And the things that cause fossils are in the Bible. The things that cause someone to examine a tree and say, hey, did you know that the cell of this tree is 90% identical to the cell in the human body? I wonder why. You know, that's
Right.
the answers are there, so I'm a little puzzled.
Yeah.
Things he thinks we're looking at that aren't true.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I would ask him, just like I would ask the other one, I would ask him, when you say that they're not true, how do you know that? Because, again, you were not there. You didn't see the very beginning. So
Yeah.
how can you say, like, you know for 100% fact, yeah, I was there, I saw it, I know it's not true, because it didn't happen. When I know you weren't there, I wasn't there, so just because I believe you don't, you have a higher degree than I do, doesn't
Yeah.
mean that you're any more right than I am.
Yeah, that's another approach. One more. Someone give me one more. Go ahead, Scarlett.
So he's engaging in theology because he's making a statement about how he knows what's right and what's wrong about God. So, like, basically he's saying all the things that is, I guess, in his mind defined as religion are wrong because he has this other set of beliefs that defines what's right, which is basically...
And he's an atheist, so yeah.
Which, I mean, that is a theology, technically.
It is, yeah. It's a, but they hate it when you say that, but like secular humanism would fall into that religion.
I mean, it's
so.
just like their thoughts about God.
Yeah.
Which is that there is...
Right. Yeah, there's another issue. So he's saying, very good points. So, you can go back. I was gonna hit this point right here. Religion is a negative force for humanity, right? In order to say that, there's got to be a standard of what he's judging that by, right? If something is bad or something is good, well, what is the standard you're judging that by? In a naturalistic worldview, and Krauss is an atheist, there is no God, there is no, higher being. Who makes that determination? How are you determining what's good for humanity or what's bad for humanity? It's that stealing from God again. It's that presupposing these particular moral laws that naturalism doesn't give. Doesn't afford that. Neil deGrasse Tyson, one of the favorites here. He says, the more I look at the universe, the more I'm convinced there's no God. I saw one article on the Babylon Bee, and the guy was like, man is more convinced with every breath of air that God gives him that God does not exist. It's like, do you need to light a candle to see the sun? The more I look at the universe, the more I'm convinced there's no God. So there's this idea of how he would expect the universe to what? To be. Go ahead, Eden. Shout at me next time. You're so quiet over there.
Well, I think this relates to what we were talking about earlier about like the general versus special revelation. And like, you can look at the world as a Christian and say, I see beauty and I see like evidence of God. But you can also look at the world as an atheist and say, I see like violence and all these things and there's no God.
Yep.
So it really relates to like your assumptions that you bring to
Right.
interpret what you see in the world. And that's where like your background beliefs or what you see in the Bible will come into play.
So there's a real powerful point, though, a power move that the Christian can make. When he's saying, well, look at the violence, look at the ugliness, look at the evil. If there's a God, how could he allow that? What's wrong with evil, killing, murder, violence? What's wrong with that in a naturalistic worldview?
The standard they have is taken from based on like God and morality.
Yeah.
That standard doesn't come from just atheism.
Right, exactly. And that's kind of the point. They steal from God to get that, because when the lion kills the zebra, no one says, lock that lion up for murdering the zebra. Maybe some crazy PETA people might do that, but most people are not going to do that. But if a man kills another man, if God exists, why would he allow? But see, there's a standard, right? There's this assumption that evil really does exist, and if God was good and God was loving, he would stop it, but he doesn't. Therefore, God must not exist. And I think our point is we don't have to get into that, even that whole theodicy of, well, why we got to allow evil. We could just show in naturalism you don't have any grounds to call something objectively evil. I got a bunch of hands up, so let me go to, okay, no one over here. Go ahead, Frank. Somebody over here also had their hand up. Go ahead, Frank. You want to say something?
I just find it interesting that not just Mr. Tyson here, but also all the rest, they all make a lot of assumptions about the natural world without taking any kind of like metaphysics into account.
Right.
Like it's all
scientism.
It's not just all science. It's all like I guess it, in a more denotative sense, like it is all science, but not just all science. It's all science in that they don't even look at
right
how they realize or how they're able to look at the world.
Right.
Like what they can realize through science. They're just like stating things as objective fact when it's more like very subjective opinion. Now, some things are fact, but that's not really what they're talking about here.
Right, and I'm not sure the context of this, but so I'm not sure if he's saying, in the scientific realm, as far as he doesn't think things are designed, which is weird, but or morally, you hear this. I think we would, we'd say because God exists, person doesn't have to believe God exists, or person doesn't have to believe the Bible to know right from wrong, but there's this grounded, it's in us. We know right from wrong. Maybe not every little particular, but we know right from wrong. And so it's just this borrowing from a theistic worldview, but he's engaging in theology. That was kind of the main point.
Looking at the universe to be convinced that there's no God, if what he's really looking for is like Zeus dancing in the sky with a cane, like a top hat.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, because a lot of skeptics have this view of God that it's like Yeah, I don't believe in that God either. Were you going to say something earlier?
Yeah, I was just gonna say whether it's like a scientific or like philosophical point of view coming from.
Right.
Like when you keep asking questions, look for more understanding. Even if it's scientific, there always gets to the point where you just can't explain.
Right.
They're like, at the like base of everything.
Right.
And so, to me, the more you look at it, the more you realize you can't explain everything.
Right.
You know, and so I think
Yeah, some things we can know, but there's some things you can't know. I'm gonna move on, Cody. I got to hit through some of these slides. Russell says religion's something left over from the infancy of our intelligence. It will fade away as we adopt reason and science as our guidelines. Again, smoking a pipe, so he's got to be smart. He's right on a few things, but you see again he's kind of engaging in theology. Nietzsche, Christianity, neither morality nor religion come into contact with reality at any point. So again, these are some of the top, skeptic thinkers that obviously engage in theology. So we're going to run through this kind of quickly. Go ahead. Look at the branches of theology. So these are some of the things that we'll be looking at this semester. Theology proper is the study of the character and nature of God. Also things like general revelation and special revelation. That is how God has revealed himself to us. Has God revealed himself to us? Things like angelology, the study of angels. And again, this... not only can you look at the theology of things like angels, but you can also get into the philosophy. Things like what are the metaphysics of angels. There's a lot of good books, a lot of good works on that too. So there's, you can look at things like historical theology as far as where is the doctrine derived at, kind of the biblical theology of angels. But then you can also look at philosophically, what are they metaphysically? What are they made of? Kind of stuff. Biblical theology, of course, is the study of the Bible. Christology would be what? Study of Christ. What would be some things that may come up during Christology that we would be looking at? What are maybe some apologetic stuff that may come up with that?
How we're saved.
How we're saved, okay. Go ahead, Cody. What's that?
Ask about baptism, like we say when you're being baptized, when you're put in the water, you're being buried with Christ, and when you're poured out, you're being raised to life with him, like you're being resurrected with him.
Mm-hmm.
Some people may say, well, I'm being dunked in water and pulled back out. How is that any different than me taking a bath?
Sure. So baptism may be something that comes up. Go ahead, Cody. Or not Cody, Jacob.
I would think like we would focus on like his demeanor and how he approaches like problems during that time, and also like people probably would like of course focus on the resurrection because that's like the biggest thing about Christ.
Yeah.
And the people around him, how he affected their lives.
The divinity of Jesus, right? That's going to be one of the biggest questions ever asked is, who do men say that I am? Who am I? That's a question we all have to answer, and eternal destiny depends on that.
I was going to say resurrection, but also disciples.
Disciples, yeah. Yeah, so that's good. There's a theology getting into kind of who is Jesus as the person, what has Jesus accomplished, what does it mean to be baptized in Jesus, and then also things like what is it to be a disciple of Jesus. So those are all good things. Ecclesiology, the study of the church. What is that? What kind of important topics may come up with ecclesiology?
like the roles of pastor.
Yeah, roles of pastor, roles of deacon.
Have fellowship in the body of the church.
Yeah, had a fellowship in the body of the church. Good, Rebecca.
The differences between denominations.
Differences between denominations. It's a big one. What about, the role of the church as far as, Scripture? There's big differences between Protestant views of ecclesiology and Roman Catholic or Orthodox. Go ahead, Cody.
I can think of two big ones. Like, some people may ask, what caused the division in the first place? The division in the church with all the different denominations.
Mm-hmm.
Another person may ask, what about the song "The Bride of Christ"? When the church is the bride, what does that mean? Like, if you actually going to marry a physical church?
Right. Yep. So those are some questions that would come up. Of course, eschatology, the study of the end times. What are some views on that? What are some competing views on eschatology, or what are some apologetic issues that may come up with that?
We'll be presenting October 24th, guys.
October 24th. Wow, that's got a little longer than I thought we had. Right before Halloween. Go ahead.
I mean, in the Bible, what God says about that He's going to come back and save us.
Yeah.
What that means exactly for us.
Right.
How He will decide who He will save, things like that. Like,
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions.
That's.
What will He look like?
Yeah, all those kind of questions. That's right. Did you have your hand up back there? Oh, no. Okay, let's move on. Oh, go right ahead.
What is it called if people are taken out before the
Rapture. So there's a lot of different views on that. You know, premillennial, postmillennial, amillennial, pre-trib, post-trib, mid-trib, right? A lot of different views on eschatology. It gets pretty deep pretty quick. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, hamartiology, right, or the anthropology, the study of sin. How radically affected by sin is man? Is man dead, or are they just severely wounded? Is there such thing as original sin? Are we condemned in Adam, or are we also condemned by our own sin? What about babies who die? Where do they go? Why do babies die if they haven't actually sinned, right? Those are big questions that come up. Pneumatology, this is always a fun one. Study of the Holy Spirit. Are tongues still for today? In the church I grew up, you better believe tongues is for today, and you should speak in tongues. Some churches would go farther than that and say it's a sign of that you are filled with the Holy Spirit, and if you don't speak in tongues, that's a major problem, right? What else? Slaying in the Spirit. You know, all kind of things that come up with the doctrine of the Holy Spirit. And then another good hot button issue, soteriology, the study of salvation. You have some people that follow a Reformed theology, some people that follow more after Jacobus Arminius, some that adopt more of a Molinist position, right? These are all big things. Is it synergism? Is it monergism? Do we cooperate with God? What does it mean to be justified? Or justification and sanctification the same thing, right? Those are all big questions that come up. Theological anthropology, that is, again, the study of the nature of humanity. Are we, a body, mind, composite? Are we just material beings? Is the brain the same thing as the mind? Is there a metaphysical part of man? Right? These are all things that we're going to be getting into, but that the systematic theologian and that the apologist has to get into, because there's so many issues that come up, there's so many issues that are tied into these issues. Wanted to put just a few systematic theology textbooks up there that I think are pretty decent for people that may want to get more into this as we go through the semester. Wayne Grudem's is a pretty much standard classic systematic theology. It's okay in my book. It's not the greatest thing in the world. It's okay. My favorite would be Dr. Geisler's systematic theology. He's got 4 volumes. I don't necessarily agree with everything in there, but I do love the fact he uses philosophy as well. He looks at the church fathers. Michael Horton's Christian Faith is another really good systematic theology as well. Another book that's a little smaller. Those books are all, Geisler's probably got 2,000 pages in his systematic theology. It's great. But if you want something a little smaller, a little more condensed, R.C. Sproul's book, Everyone's a Theologian, deals with all these topics and basically hits them in about 4 or 5 pages. So that would be something to look at. Mike Bost, what do we got next semester? Not next semester, next week. It's been a long night already. Is it, trying to remember. Might be Pastor Ware that must be speaking. You got the list? We'll pull up that list, and I think it's on my phone, and he's recording me. But any questions as we close the evening?
Next week is Clinton Wilcox.
That's it. Clinton Wilcox. He's staying with me for a week. I should know that. What do we got after that?
After that is the nature of God, and then the Trinity.
So the nature of God, you're doing that one, right? All right, so next few weeks will be interesting, guys. So don't forget, Monday, it's a cultural event. Little more exciting news. What's that? 6:50? 6:50?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what it said on the poster.
Okay, so 6:50, cultural event, unplanned. Make sure you see that. One other thing, we had really been working on Think Group, right? We were trying to meet somewhere every Thursday night, and was bringing some donuts and that. Last semester it was just rough because we could never really kind of get together. So I think it was Scarlett that had the brilliant idea of, hey, let's get a room. And so we're able to get a room for this semester. So on Thursdays during common time at 11 o'clock. Eden, do you remember what room that was?
Yeah, so first it won't be this week or next week. So it'll be starting basically 2 weeks from now.
Like February 6th or something?
Yeah. And
So I just bring it up to say there's going to be some people that can't make it on Tuesday nights. You're welcome to come to both, bring some friends. But we'll actually have our own room. So we'll be able to kind of get into a little more detail of the stuff that we're talking about here. So
it should be in 223, but we'll announce that the week we're starting.
223. Okay, yeah. So we'll know for sure in a couple weeks. So Monday, unplanned. It's a pro-life film. We're going to take question and answer after. It's going to be in the Giorgio Center, again, cultural event. And then that Tuesday night, we're going to be up here. We'll probably have hopefully a big crowd of people that will be coming up. There'll probably be some pro-choice people, I would imagine. I hope so, right? And the goal is just to engage them, of course, with love, with truth, with grace. Give them good reasons, give them good arguments, reason together. So it'll be exciting next week for sure. So any other thoughts before we end, Haley?
This Tuesday, whenever you said there was going to be someone speaking
On abortion.
Philosophical and biological.
Yep, Clinton. Yep, that'll be next Tuesday. Yeah, he will be here. So in this room. Yep. All right. Any other thoughts? All right. See you guys next week.